So check this out. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth tells military recruiters many young Americans are too fat or too dumb to serve. And yes, this is a real headline. And yes, this is the United States. Check this out. This is Hegseth saying said things.
These have been historic recruiting numbers. You guys have all delivered. And I know it's not easy on the basic ingredients on recruiting that too many of our young people are too fat or too dumb, or not dumb, that's wrong. We're just not educating them properly, or they've got criminal records, or ADHD, or all these other things. There's a lot of things contributing to what someone may or may not qualify to get into the military.
And how do you talk about this stuff? It's so hard. And this is something I mention all the time on YouTube. If you watch many American YouTube channels, it represents the population. I hate to be mean about it, but that's just what it is. Even Hegseth is talking about it, because you got to get people to join the military, but they just don't qualify. I've heard this from several people that it's a real problem among young people. And you'll hear it from teachers also, which I've told you guys before. I guess a lot of young people in the USA just can't focus on anything, and you got to talk to them like you're talking on Twitter. It's or talk to them like you're talking on TikTok. So TikTok, I guess you call it. But basically, very short sentences, really simple words, make sure they can understand. And Donald Trump, unfortunately, then is a representation of the whole right now. Check this out. This is actually from the UK. Listen to what they're saying about Trump. It's actually pretty interesting.
Well, he's put these plaques under, you sometimes wonder with Trump whether he's actually really the president of the United States, or we're watching some ridiculous television series, because it's all so bizarre. This time he's put these plaques under various former presidents' portraits, or in one case with Biden, he's actually taken the picture away and put a picture of an auto pen and said, Joe Biden, the worst president of the United States. And it goes on and on.
And what's crazy about this stuff, and I've mentioned it, on the channel before, this whole plaque thing, and I showed it to my wife, and I always have to explain things 2 or 3 times, because she's always just like, wait, what are you guys doing today? Stupid thing is going on, because a lot of it doesn't really make sense. And I always find it fascinating, and I don't know how to explain it, strangely comforting when I can see that other people can see it too. So, when we talk about this stuff every day, I know how it feels to be gaslit, because it basically, what stuff costs at the store, then Trump tells you that everything's cheap. Or if you have a MAGA person in your life and they're just like, oh yeah, Trump said we're going to get $5,000 checks from Doge, or $2,000 from tariffs, or, whatever. And we're going to get all these no tax on tips, and we're going to be so rich. And it's like, it's so sad, because to, let's say the rest of the world, we can all see what's going on. It's clearly a clown show, but yet who falls for this stuff in USA? And then that's why it goes back to the quote of Hegseth saying, many Americans are too dumb or too fat to join the military even. Listen to more what they're saying.
Not one of Kamala Harris, because she was of no consequence whatsoever. Yeah. But in some ways you might think this is funny, but it does, to me, it's very, very childish, and it's also incredibly undignified for the White House. It's a little bit like Starmer taking down all the serious pictures of Margaret Thatcher or the Queen or whatever, and replacing them with some abstract junk. Yeah. This is. It's the very worst aspect of Trump. It's childish, it's vindictive, it's unpleasant, it's actually deeply unseemly for a president.
Exactly, it's not befitting of the role of the president of the United States of America.
It's absolutely appalling, but nothing he's ever done has been befitting of the role of the president of the United States. He's literally demolishing.
I don't know what to say. I think it's funny because, you guys, and it's just talking about, Brits, you say the same stuff, say maybe Americans say, but just you're using different words than what we would use and express it in different ways. I was unaware of the Starmer thing with the, I guess, taking down of pictures. If you guys know about this, please let me know. I'm just curious on this stuff. I don't follow British politics to know, all the details of that particular one. I follow the U.S. news. But I think what's going on, basically, everyone outside the USA is just looking at this stuff of how can you keep this thing going on, right? It's a weird TV show. Everything Trump does is appalling. And how do you tolerate it? And that's sort of, for those of us who are watching this outside the USA, you guys know I'm in Korea. I just think the same thing every day. Why don't people just stand up and just remove the guy? And I think for, say, the Republicans who are still with Trump, you're sinking your careers, you're sinking your reputations, and you're hurting the nation, the country, your families, all sorts of stuff, and yet you still go along with it. And that's the part that's bizarre to me. Like, hey, Trump's crazy. Let Trump go do crazy stuff all by himself. Why do you have to hang out with the crazy guys? Like, why? I think a lot of it's greed, but let's see what more they have to say in Britain here.
Part of the White House to suit his own ends. He's put this terribly tacky Oval Office sign outside the door of the Oval Office, as if anyone in the White House needs to know where the Oval Office is. I mean, I'll add to Pierce's words, mean-spirited, embarrassing. I mean, it's just such a bad look, not just for him, because we know what he's like, but he is, I think, a dreadful representative of the United States of America. And he really has made the United States on the world stage smaller, not bigger.
And I'm told the new ballroom in the White House is going to have a McDonald's drive-through at the side of it.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but and it's corruption as well.
I'm not joking.
He's taking people don't need to hire lobbying firms or smart communications people to get messages through to the US government anymore. They just buy him off. They just give $1 million to the ballroom and everything's fine.
So I don't know about the McDonald's drive-through to the ballroom. I hadn't thought about that. And the craziest thing, whether or not it's ever going to happen or not, they could just be making a joke. But the craziest thing is you actually don't know anymore what's real, because it like seems like it could be possible, right? If I said, hey guys, in the ballroom is going to be a KFC, there's going to be McDonald's, you're going to be able to get your chicken McNuggets while you sit in the Oval Office, right? You're going to stop by the ballroom, grab your chicken McNuggets, head over to the Oval Office. You just have to give them, $1 million, you get your gold card, and then I guess you can run the show. I mean, I guess it's that easy to buy off the presidency. It's whole thing's weird, right? And I know if you want me to cry and kick and scream and yell like all the American channels, I can do that. But you know what? I'm going with Hegseth here. Unfortunately, a lot of people are too dumb or too stupid, but I really do. I'm a little bit mean today, but isn't this stuff obvious what's happening? Let's look at this. This is quite interesting. Jake Tapper talking about similar stuff.
In our politics lead, it's only Thursday, and already it's been a week full of behaviors from President Trump that are unusual, even by his particular standards, the latest example of which is President Trump's primetime address to the nation last night. Such presidential addresses usually carry some weight. One might expect to hear some big news, an announcement of some sort. Instead, the nation heard Trump just rattle on about his accomplishments like he does on any given day, although he just did so faster and louder.
That was a pretty good description, right? It's what we've seen before, but except faster and louder. And it's interesting because as the nation, I just think this is going to get turned off by Trump. It's just unsustainable. You can't go along this stuff forever. They're already sort of moving on from the Trumpies and now talking on Fox News that what happens if the pendulum swings the other direction.
See winning the presidency. Can you?
Yes.
What?
I would not bet on it, but I
shock.
think it's absolutely possible. So let's just talk about this.
Make your case.
I think if she ran for president, she would have at least a decent fighter's chance to win the nomination. I don't think she'd be the front runner. I'm not sure she'd win it, but I think that there's a real possibility that she could. Then, ultimately, it's two choices in this country for president, right? It's generally down to a binary choice for most voters. And I'm not sure there's such a thing as unelectable anymore in America. In a normal election cycle, I don't think she could win. But under a circumstance where the public is fed up with the Republicans or the incumbents, and she's representing major change, I absolutely could see her winning. I know that.
So I think he's making a good point, right? If people are going to be economically stressed, they're going to be so ticked off the Republicans, they'll go with the biggest change possible. I mean, that's one way that you could read it. I have no problem if AOC is president or at this point anyone other than Trump. To be fairly frank, I really got no problem. But I find that very fascinating though, that we're thinking like, okay, we're going to go way more to the left. In my opinion, and any of this kind of stuff, I just want someone normal who cares about the regular American people. And it just feels like we haven't had this for so long. And I remember there was the first Trump presidency, and then Biden came in, and Biden actually talked like a normal person in his first speech. I remember that very, very clearly. And I called my friend and was like, hey, we got someone normal again. and you guys, there's things you may like or dislike about Biden, but for me, like, at least it was in bounds. It wasn't like, something that you have to talk about Biden every single day. It just wasn't. And it reminded me of kind of the Obama years where, compared to Trump, Fox News basically had to just make up stuff about Obama. Like, oh my God, today Obama's wearing a brown suit, right? No, seriously, that was like a big scandal over there for them. Or I remember they were upset that Michelle wanted to have a vegetable garden and was encouraging kids to eat their vegetables. And they would bring people on Fox. Oh, how dare you tell my kids to eat vegetables? And like, it was like really moronic. And like right now, there's so many scandals and lies coming out of the White House. Like, I just want anyone normal. But the idea, though, that even Fox News is starting to prepare their audience for someone way more left. And it's actually funny because what's fascinating about this stuff, let's say AOC comes in, or, even Bernie or whatever, right? And they start talking about stuff like, hey, we want to make your healthcare costs affordable. And it'll be really fascinating how Fox News will spin that. Oh, you're going to be slaves to healthcare, and lower fees are going to be awful for you. That's why Fox News becomes a joke, because 99.9% of the people would benefit from having better schools, better healthcare, right? Better food, consumer protections, and I wish that more leadership would just talk like regular people and appeal to regular people, and I think they would do much better. And
friends, I told this to a friend the other day, and his jaw dropped. He's like, "Are you kidding?" I'm not kidding. Again, I wouldn't bet on it, but I would not count it out, and I would not underestimate her either.
Do you think this country has gone that far left that we could put AOC in the Oval Office?
No, but I think that we are just swinging wildly back and forth. I think a lot of people on the left, think about this, they would have said a few years ago, there's no way Donald Trump could win again. They thought the same thing the first time.
True.
If there's no way he could win again. And then he did pretty handily. I think that absent leadership that can bring people together and satisfy people, and I think today's report on inflation is very good, right, for Trump and the Republicans in the near term. But if you just close your eyes and envision in 2028 an economy that people are frustrated with, and young people casting about for something new and different, and those demographics that shifted a little bit to Trump going back, there's a path to victory for anyone with a D next to their name. And I think that's true on the other side as well, depending on the political circumstances. I do believe that.
And to be fair, it's nice to hear actually a normal person talk on Fox News, at least in a normal way. I disagree with his assessment on inflation, because I showed you guys the details of the report. There's a lot of numbers that are missing. So there's that. But this is where we're at. So I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on this stuff. What do you think about what Hakes has said? What do you think about what people are saying in the UK? And what do you think about AOC's chances going into the next presidential cycle? I think, I keep telling you, after midterms, Trump will be lame duck, and all the talk will be on who's going to be the next president. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you all in the next video.